Let's give another hand for. People want to say your name as Darius Monroe Clark. So Darius Clark Monroe. It just sounds better, but I'm not going to mess up your name right now. Very, very powerful film. I mean, you kind of warned me about that when we were talking outside. That people get emotional when they see this film. But I can just look at some of the faces in this room, and I can see that it actually connected with something. What was your intention 7 years ago when you came to the decision to make this movie?
Initially, my intent was, I think I was more focused on the whole redemptive aspect of it initially, just the whole, I committed this crime, I wanted to go back and apologize to the victims. And a lot of the film was about just me going from prison and film school and again, going back and having this conversation with people who were involved, who were customers inside the bank. But working on the film, that became less important to me. It became a part of the film, but it wasn't just the crux of the story. And I became more fascinated with how I got involved in crime in the first place. It wasn't just this whole, oh, well, look at me now. As time went on, I became less interested in the whole filmmaking thing. I became less interested in the whole story being about redemption. I just wanted to explore, how does a kid wind up in prison in Texas? How does a kid wind up in the criminal justice system? But that was not just their path, and how easy it is for you to be swept into the system. That became the foundation of the story.
I can't imagine working on a project for a year. You threw yourself into this for 7 years. What was that like? Was there ever a point where you wanted to say, you know what, let's stop? I just want to, I've got this film degree. I want to go and make the next Disney movie or something like that. Was there ever a point where you was like, forget it, this is too hard?
Yeah, absolutely. I started working on this in 2007. We shot most of the footage in 2007, and then I worked on it for about 3 more years, and then I quit the film. So about 2010 and 2012, you couldn't talk to me about the story. You couldn't ask me about the process, what I was doing, how I was feeling, and it was because I couldn't see the film. For me, a lot of times when I'm dealing with just in art, whether it's a script or a short film, at a certain point, I need to visualize how the final film looks or what the structure is going to be. And for the longest time with this story, I couldn't see it. And so I quit. And also, I was also concerned about just how my family was going to be represented. I knew there were people in the film, whether it was my family members or Pierre or just whoever, the audience may have a negative reaction to in terms of their truth, or their version of the truth. And just all of those things concerned me. And in 2012, after working on fiction films and working on set, I realized that the film was missing another layer. And for me, it was the reenactments. Because I just became so upset. I was bothered by the fact that the audience was watching 3 grown men talk about this child or teen version of themselves. I know a lot of times for audience members, they would just take the image of these grown men, and that would be the only thing they would see. And I wanted to show what it was like to be a paranoid, foolish, excited, thrilled teen to do the crime. And the cool thing about documentaries is it allows you to explore cinema. You can add these fiction elements to explore truth. And once I decided to do the reenactments, it started to come together for me.
When it comes to documentary filmmaking, you sort of kind of have to detach yourself from the subject matter. You can't do that, right, since you are the subject. How difficult was that? Like just kind of being able to look at it as a filmmaker, but also knowing this is what happened. Like, tell me some of the struggles you had doing that.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because this film was not just a film about myself. I was interviewing my family members. There were moments where, just for instance, the first interview I did was with my grandmother, which was foolish to choose as the first subject. But you know, when I interviewed my grandmother, I realized instantly, just as her grandson, that it was just rare for me to have her on camera. And so for the first 3 hours, we didn't say anything about the bank robbery, anything about me. I just asked her about her life. And I just talked about her history and the family history. And I realized that this was an excuse. This documentary was also an excuse to steal family history, to ask people questions that they would never give me in a normal setting. And there was a moment in the film where you see my grandmother tearing up because I was tearing up because she did this song. And it was tough as a subject because it wasn't the song that made me emotional. I was just well aware of the fact that it's mortality, and the fact that this woman was not going to be around forever. And so hearing her sing this song that she used to sing to me when I was in first grade, I was like, oh, this is a cherished moment for me. So it was tough things like that. Even with the district attorney, I went into that interview as the director, not the subject. I didn't want to be defensive. I also didn't want her to feel like she was going to be under attack, and I wanted her to state her truth. And I feel like she couldn't feel, be comfortable enough to share that. So the interview process was cool, but the edit was the most torturous experience of all, because it was like pulling a scab off of you, allowing the scab to heal, and then ripping it off over and over and over again for 7 years. I mean, just for many years. Even when we got to the point where we thought the film was finished on 4 different occasions, I cried with joy and thought it was over, and it was not done. It was not over. I still had many more weeks or months to go. But it was therapy. I'd never gone to an official therapist, and I realized this whole thing was a healing process, and it felt very therapeutic. It just, I just didn't know how healthy it was to stay stuck in this situation. So I wanted to finish it as soon as possible, but it just never felt like it was going to be done.
How many hours of footage did you film, throughout? Because I know, doing any kind of project, you'll shoot 100, 200, 300 hours worth of film to whittle it down to an hour and a half. So how much did you actually shoot to get to what we have here? And is there anything that you cut out that you kind of think back on as like, maybe I should have put that back in, or the term goes, you got to kill your babies.
Right.
Your favorite scene, your favorite shot or like that. What was the baby that you had to kill to make this as cohesive and streamlined as this was?
I mean, this is the final film is 83 minutes. We shot, strangely enough, we shot 84 hours to get to 83 minutes. But in terms of feeling like I had a baby or something that I wanted to be in the film that's not in the film, that's not the case. Everything that's in this film is exactly what I wanted to be in the film. There were instances where stuff would run a little longer, interviews would go on too much, and there were a few sound bites. But when I watched the finished film, everything I fought for, and there were things in the finished film that weren't in previous cuts. Spike felt there was this version of the film where you didn't know about the NYU faculty, not knowing about my background. And Spike was very adamant about the fact that he didn't want people to think that I just got into the program because they knew about the robbery, or there was some type of leniency on me. He wanted people to know that they had no idea. And he asked me to put that section back into the film, to work on the section, and put that in the film. There was a whole different ending at a certain point where I was trying to wrap up the film, and I felt like as a subject I needed to close the film. And Orlando Bagwell, who worked on Eyes on the Prize and many other documentaries, he saw a cut and he said, the film is your statement. You don't have to watch the film and then you wrap up the film. We just watch. The experience was what you wanted us to have. And so there are moments like that, but the final film is something that every single minute, every single beat, these are things that I wanted to be in. I'm glad they gave me the film.
Now, you mentioned Spike Lee. He's an executive producer on this. How was it working with, a legend?
Spike has a strong personality. So there were many instances where I would be in his office 7 o'clock in the morning at NYU, and you would just hear 2 grown men yelling at the top of their voices, because Spike is very specific in his style and tone. But the cool thing is that he taught me how to stand up for my own voice, my own vision. Like I said, with the NYU, there were definitely moments in the film where Spike had a specific genius note, and I ran with it. But there were moments where he wanted to turn it into a Spike Lee production. I'm like, this is not a Spike Lee production. You know Spike, he wanted more slavery. He wanted some numbers on the screen. He wanted to contextualize this like some other documentaries do. But I wanted to remove all the pie charts and all the stats, and I wanted to just show real people and humanity. And I didn't want it to feel like you were in school getting fed some medicine. I wanted people to just feel like, oh, these are folks I know or I could know, I'm related to. These are just regular people just like myself. I didn't want it to feel like it was being force-fed. There were sometimes, I had to fight for that.
How does it feel to beat Spike Lee in an argument?
Let me tell you, you don't really beat him in an argument. You just, what you do is you say, it's sure Spike, and you just don't do it.
Yeah. Now, when we were talking out there, you said that this is kind of snowballed beyond what we kind of imagined.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about the experience of, this personal, very this movie that's about your life, about what makes you you, being shown all over the world, doing interviews on on television. People are comparing you to Oscar caliber films. What is that like, starting from something that you just needed to kind of get out of you, like you just need to make, and you just need to make for yourself, to like something that's a big deal now, and it's very kind of relevant at this, where we are.
For me, it was, it's still surreal. I'm fortunate, I'm glad to be here in Trenton, but it's surreal because I'm sure we've all gone through tough experiences, we've all been through places that we don't want to return to. And I remember clearly the day my mom found out about the bank robbery. I remember the day I went to prison, and I remember the fact that my family thought this was a complete travesty and a tragedy. It was like I said in the film, a death. People were destroyed, and I just remember those were some really hard years and long days for all of us. And so when the film was at South by Southwest, it was an out-of-body experience to be in a place of positivity, be in a place of healing and understanding after going through such a tumultuous situation. And no one, at no point when I was working on this film did I say, oh, I want to go to South by Southwest, I just wanted to finish the film. I just kept telling people I just want to finish, hopefully one day I'll finish. And once I finished the film, anything else would be, icing on the cake. And so for the film to have traveled the way it has, and for people to receive it the way they have, it's blown me away. It still blows me away that people even request to screen it, because it felt like this photo album, just this family thing that felt personal to me that I was working on. I didn't realize that it would resonate with so many people. Absolutely.